GearNetwork.com.
This is a Gear Network production.
You're listening to Better Live Than Dead.
I believe it's a big challenge for our building to keep things in perspective and to, if we're going to get addicted to anything, let's get addicted to the process.
Welcome back. Trust the podcast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This is episode 22, the first of a new season, so therefore it's a season preview cast. Now, before we get started here, I am Ryan Wolfe at WolfeBLTV, and I want to let you know before I introduce our new co-host for the season, you can hear us on BetterLiveThanDead.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, and now even on Spotify, so make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with the latest Trust the podcast. And as you know, last season we had Del Rito 26 Shirts join us. He still may join us this year as a co-host at one point in time or another. But for now, because I got a new job, it's my fault. I'm sorry. But you all get stuck dealing with Brayton again. Brayton Wilson. We love him. We love him so much here at Better Live Than Dead. And he's actually joining us now live on the IndyCar Media Hotline. You can follow him at BJ Wilson WGR. Brayton, how you doing?
I am good there, Ryan. How are you?
I am fantastic. For better or for worse, football is back. We're here to talk about the Buffalo Bills in particular. Just to open it right up, kind of a little open forum here. Football's back. Thursday night, we get I think it's the Eagles and the Falcons. Sunday, though, the most important game for all of us in Western New York is the Bills and the Ravens. So just kind of off the top here, what are your opening thoughts about the Buffalo Bills this season?
I mean, obviously, there's going to be some high expectations for this team heading into this upcoming season just because they were a playoff team last year. Of course, last year they exceeded every expectation I think that was thrown at them. A lot of people, including myself, were kind of picking them to be in that 5 to 6 win range and their first-year head coach, Sean McDermott. But somehow, some way, they managed to get a lot of turnovers on defense, while the offense is able to put up enough production to get some big wins. And they managed to squeeze into the playoffs in the last day, last minute, really in one of the more remarkable and memorable years that the Bills have had in quite some time. So, I think that this year there's going to be maybe some higher expectations, but, it's going to be interesting to see how this year plays out, especially now that guys like, Tyrod Taylor out of the picture, and you've got Nathan Peterman and Josh Allen in at quarterback. I mean, you've still got Sean McCoy, who's still in the picture, but how productive is he going to be? Of course, as that narrative goes where, he's entering his 30s now, how productive can he be in his 30s? And then there's just other areas on this Buffalo team that there's a lot of question marks heading into the year. But, I'm looking forward to this year. It's been a long time coming, and I'm really, really looking forward to diving in and getting ready to start the 2018 season.
Now, Brayton, as you mentioned, the Buffalo Bills did make the playoffs by the skin of their teeth last season, and as it can be said no better than you, a very remarkable, memorable fashion, something that we probably won't forget for the rest of our lives, that's for sure, unless the Bills win the Super Bowl, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. For me, expectations are higher, but with that being said, expectations are more logical, as we'll talk about here in just a few minutes when we jump into our three big things. It's hard to say you can expect the playoffs again. I mean, obviously, we talked about this in the offseason that the Buffalo Bills drafted Josh Allen, and we'll get in the quarterbacks in just a second here. But I don't want to sit back and say, the Bills are, if they win 4 or 5 games, I'll be happy because last year I said that and they went to the playoffs. So maybe I can do that again. We'll talk about that again also later in the podcast. A bit of a teaser for you in the radio land here, but. I guess, really, I just want to jump into the big three big things here. Talking about, first off, Nathan Peterman. Why, we can't start talking about the Buffalo Bills without talking about Nathan Peterman, who has been named the starting quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, at least heading into week 1. We've done this before, obviously, with Nathan Peterman last season against the Chargers. He had that really atrocious start, and then he ended up playing against the Colts as well, which wasn't as bad, but still – the narrative had been set when he threw those 5 interceptions against the Chargers. To highlight real quick the competition, first off, A.J. McCarron lost the competition. It really wasn't his fault. When he played, he didn't really tear the cover off the ball. But That being said, he also was injured at one point in time and had to sit out for a little while, which therefore most likely had cost him the job. Josh Allen, freshly drafted 7th overall. We'll be the backup quarterback. He looked good at times, but not good enough to win the job. Will most certainly benefit from some development time and some time on the bench now. Brayton, as for Nathan Peterman, just to kind of highlight real quick for those who may not have paid attention in the preseason, he had an 80.5% completion percentage, so 80.5 completion percentage, not bad at all. 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. He showed consistency. I think that's the one thing that fans can really lean on, is that he looked good with the 1s, he looked good with the 2s, he looked good with the 3s. And also, it's really truly the simple and safe pick. I mean, that's just for me, that seems to be really the answer here for Nathan Peterman. Is he's the safe, simple pick. If he sucks, it's Nathan Peterman. What did you expect? If he's good, it's, oh, hey, he had a good preseason and he really built off of it. But then again, try to take the preseason with a grain of salt, because when that Ravens defense comes hauling over the line on Sunday, it's going to be a different ballgame for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward very much to seeing how Nathan Peterman's going to perform as the full-time starter now. I mean, last year, he's kind of thrown into the fire when he came in against Los Angeles. Throw a quarter in the swear jar for that. But, he was thrown into the fire. He throws 5 picks in the first half of his very first NFL game, arguably the worst start for a rookie quarterback in the history of the NFL. However, he comes back a few weeks later, plays against the Colts. He's knocked out with a concussion in the third quarter of that game. However, he's able to throw for a touchdown and really set the Bills up for a chance to win that football game in the driving snow. That was the snow game then. And again, in the playoffs, the wild card game, he kind of came in a tough situation where Tyrod Taylor goes down late due to injury. The Bills are trying to make one last push to try and at least tie the game. And Peterman gets, thrown to the wolves against a very tough Jaguars defense. It's, and in this offseason, during OTAs and during training camp and during the preseason, Nathan Peterman has looked the most confident of the 3 quarterbacks that were in that quarterback competition. And, I thought that all 3 quarterbacks have had their positive moments, but Nathan Peterman, outside of his interception that he threw against Carolina, just looked like he had some zip to the ball. He had confidence while he was throwing the ball. He was hitting his targets the way you want to see your quarterback hit the targets. He was putting it in perfect spots for his receivers to make catches, and he had full control of the huddle. That's one thing that we want to see out of any quarterback that comes here, is when he comes here, he's a leader on the team. And it seems like that offense is backing up whoever it is that's going to be calling plays for this team moving forward. But Nathan Peterman certainly is going to be a very eye-opening year for a lot of people, because, again, how can he respond from last year's debacle in his debut and the interception that he threw against Jacksonville? How can he respond from that? And, how much of a better quarterback can he be in year 2 compared to year 1?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what most Bills fans are going to be looking towards. Is the season starts off on a very tough stretch. I mean, it's not very easy out of the gate. First off, with Baltimore, you have to play Minnesota on the road. You have to play Green Bay on the road. I mean, there's been kind of a thought that maybe the Buffalo Bills are throwing Peterman to the fire more or less, because they would rather not, put Josh Allen against, you got Baltimore, home against the Chargers, at Minnesota, at Green Bay. It's a very daunting 4-week task, if not against good teams, just against very talented and very scary defenses. So it could certainly be something where these first 4 games are kind of a test out period for Peterman and kind of see what he does, but also see how he reacts to being named the starting quarterback. Because, it might go well, and if it goes well, maybe he stays on as the starter, but if it doesn't go well, certainly the with Josh Allen being around, the calls for him to be starting and him to take over, they'll get loud quick. We've seen that happen in Buffalo before, and I don't think it'll be any different in this scenario. But looking at other offensive people, one thing that we're going to follow along this year, because I know last year we had a couple little quirks in the podcast where we would take some time to look into some specific things. I know we'll obviously have our playoff watch, if that is so necessary as the season goes on. But we're going to have a LeSean McCoy quest for 11,000 rushing yards. Now, right now, LeSean McCoy opens the season as the 29th all-time leading rusher with 10,092 rushing yards. He has 3,300 rushing yards in 43 games with Buffalo, which averages out to about 1,227 yards in a 16-game season. Now, if healthy, or if he stays in the field, I know there is the ongoing investigation with that very strange incident that happened in Atlanta. There's still a chance that he could be put on the commissioner's exempt list and miss games. But if he stays healthy, if he stays on the field, McCoy should run past 11,000 yards this season. I'm sorry. A potential 1,200-yard season would push McCoy into 20th all time. Right now, that's Corey Dillon, who has 11,241 yards. Now, the reason that this chase is so important is because right now with LeSean McCoy having 10,092 yards, he's in within rushing distance of 12,000 rushing yards in his career. Now, historically, only 3 running backs who have amassed more than 12,000 yards in their career are not in the Hall of Fame. That's Frank Gore, Adrian Peterson, and Edgerrin James. Now, obviously, Gore and Peterson are still active, and Edgerrin James made the Hall of Fame's final 15 last season. So, just on the surface, it looks like a really good thing for Shady McCoy if he can go into his age 30 season and have a couple more productive seasons. He'll definitely get some Hall of Fame chatter going, which he already has. But first step, obviously, is moving to 28th all time, which that is Otis Anderson, who has 10,273 yards. Also, Brayton, real quick, this was pointed out today on Twitter by ESPN's Mike Rodak. It's a very nice stat he pointed out. LeSean McCoy needs 69 rushing yards to move up to 6th all-time in Bills history from 9th place. So 69 to move up to 6 from 9. I don't know how that works, but it works.
Yeah. Double
Very
nice standard. For,
so much nice. It's elite nice. I think that was is that something you said on Twitter? It's an elite nice tweet.
I say that, but I'm sure somebody pointed it out.
I feel like it was you.
I like the double nice standard for that tweet there.
Very good. Also, some more stats for you to chew on here because I love stats. If LeSean McCoy can get 1,146 yards this year, he can move to 4th all time in team history behind Joe Cribbs, who has 4,445 yards. Right now, McCoy is behind C.J. Spiller, who has 3,321. Willis McGahee, who has 3,365 yards. Ray Carlton, who has 3,368 yards. And Travis Henry, who has 3,849 yards. So clearly, McCoy is getting himself up towards the upper echelon of Bills running backs and also historically just NFL running backs. And one more thing, too. If McCoy can get 9 rushing touchdowns this season, he'll move into 3rd all-time in Bills history. Which is Cookie Gilchrist, who has 31 rushing touchdowns. Kind of did that. I was going to break it down further, but there are a few names between McCoy and Cookie Gilchrist, but it seems like 9 rushing touchdowns is not super difficult to get. So a lot of historical stuff to look at for LeSean McCoy this season. I mean, the offensive line, not too promising in the preseason, but we've seen what LeSean McCoy has done in the past with less than stellar offensive line play. So I'm very confident we'll be talking a lot about LeSean McCoy this season.
Oh, for sure. And I know that the narrative in this league is, it's a quarterback-heavy league. You got to have a good quarterback in order to have success in offense. But the Bills have been a running offense primarily for several years in the NFL because, well, let's face it, the quarterback play has not been all that particularly good for the Bills over the past several years. Maybe that changes with Nathan Peterman and or Josh Allen this year. But LeSean McCoy is still going to be a workhorse in this Buffalo Bills offense. I mean, he's going to get the ball, whether it be in the air or on the ground. He's probably going to get it a lot on the ground again this year. It all just depends on how the offensive line will be able to hold up for him and how they'll be able to block because in the 1 or 2 games we saw LeSean McCoy this preseason, that first-team offensive line did not really allow LeSean McCoy to get the chance to use his agility and use the unique ability that he has to be so shifty on his feet with the football and break free and get some good yardage. A lot of teams are getting to him and wrapping him up, and I think that's going to be a huge issue for the Bills if they don't have that solid play on the on the offensive line coming up this season. But, I mean, still, the Bills are going to feed LeSean McCoy the ball as long as he stays healthy. And if he stays healthy, just expect him to get a ton of carries. And I would not be surprised whatsoever if, as the season goes on, we continue to hear the random stats that LeSean McCoy is going to break. And, yeah, sure, I mean, eventually down the road, maybe we will see LeSean McCoy in Hall of Fame consideration, whether that be with the Bills or whether he's, at that point maybe moved on to another team. But I certainly think that, he's been a dynamic player in this era. And if he continues his strong play throughout and into the next couple of years and giving his best for at least a couple more years while he's still relatively young and able to move well, I think that there's no doubt that he can gain some ground and get some considerable notice and, fanfare for the Hall of Fame.
Now, Brayton, one thing you'll notice about this podcast this season, and I know you talked a little with us last year as well, we love to do predictions here on Trusted Podcast. So we're going to talk about some prop bets real quick because these came across the board this afternoon, and they're all really good. Right now, Buffalo is last at 250 to 1 odds to win the Super Bowl, 5 to 1 odds to get the first overall pick, which are the best odds. The over-under is set at 5.5 wins. And for Nathan Peterman, they're not very nice to him either. The over-under of 1.5 interceptions in week 1, 12 to 1 odds he does not start the second half in Baltimore, and 10 to 1 odds that Peterman's first pass of 2018 is an interception. So these statistics are not very nice to him there. But I do want to mention this really quick. Let's run down the schedule because I'm going to ask you in just a moment for some sort of season prediction. So you'll also get mine too, which probably won't be very good. But week 1, we've got the Bills in Baltimore against the Ravens. Week 2, home against the Chargers. Week 3, at Minnesota. Week 4, at Green Bay. Week 5, back home against Tennessee. Week 6, in Houston. Week 7, in Indianapolis. Week 8, on Monday night, home versus New England. Week 9, home versus Chicago. Week 10, at the Jets. Week 11 is a bye week. Week 12, versus Jacksonville. Week 13, at Miami. Week 14, versus the Jets at home. Week 15 versus the Lions at home, Week 16 at New England, and Week 17 wrapping up the regular season on Sunday, December 30th against the Miami Dolphins in Buffalo. So, Brayton, with that being said, where do you have the Bills landing this season record-wise?
I mean, as a lot of people know that I've got the schedule kind of memorized now because, we make Howard pick the Bills every week on Tuesday. So I get very used to writing out the schedule beforehand. But evaluating what's coming up for the Bills this year, I can't see them having the same amount of success that they had last year, especially with the start of the schedule for the Bills. Baltimore is maybe the easiest competition they have, at least through the first 4 weeks of the season, because then they got to play the Chargers, who last year damn well nearly made the playoffs because of a strong finish to the season. And then, in weeks 3 and 4, they're facing tough NFC North opponents in the Minnesota Vikings and also the Green Bay Packers. And then week 5, you got Tennessee, who, even then Tennessee is not that bad. They're not a terrible team, but how many wins can you see the Bills getting, in the first part of the season? It's going to be a tough call. I just don't see them winning any more than 6 games. So I'll say 6-10. I'll go on the high mark of that. I'll say 6-10 for the season. They'll finish as a bottom 10 team in the NFL. They'll probably pick in the top 10. But, I certainly don't think that they're going to be the worst team in the NFL, like some people have picked them out to be, where, they're picking first, second, third overall. Anywhere between 4 and 10 seems like more of a logistical prediction for the Bills. But I can't see the Bills being any worse than, say, 3-13. Even then, it's just like, are they really only going to have 3 wins? But I think they'll finish 6-10. That'll be my prediction, and that's probably going to be the ceiling. But again, last year I said the Bills are going to finish 5-11, and the Cleveland Browns are going to have a better record than the Bills. And what do you know? You look at what happened last year. The Bills finished 9-7, got into the playoffs, and the Browns finished 0-16. So take my word for what it's worth, and it's not worth much.
I'll tell you what, I said if the Bills won 4 games last season, I'd be happy, and they ended up making the playoffs. So after a couple of games, I was very pleased. I mean, this year, looking at it, the offense has a lot of inspiring to do because it hasn't really done too much in the preseason. Then again, your pal Jeremy White Brayton, he's pointed out preseason pledge is a very important thing to do. Take everything with a grain of salt. Don't unless it's an injury like Kyle Williams getting hurt. That was a big deal. Aside from that, there's not really a whole lot that went on in the preseason where I was like, oh my God, that's going to turn the tides this season. But I'm waffling here. At this point, I'm going to say 5-11. That's maybe where I'm landing this season because they will win a few easy games. I mean, they play the Jets. I think they'll take 1-2 there. They might take 1-2 against Miami. It feels like they always do that. I know they have the Bears coming, but the Bears just got Khalil Mack. Their defense is incredible. They play a lot of teams, a lot of underrated teams that have very good defenses. I mean, they play the Ravens, who always have a good defense. They play the Chargers, who have a very good defense and a good offense too. With Melvin Gordon, and the Bills couldn't stop the run in the preseason. Again, it's the preseason, but they couldn't stop the run to save their lives in the preseason. Then you look at, Tennessee is a dynamic team. You've got, like I said, the Bears, who offensively don't know what they're going to be, but defensively, they're probably going to be pretty good. So there's a lot going on there where I think the Bills, they might be able to squeak out a couple surprises, but for the most part, it may be a long season here in Western New York, and it seems like that's kind of how it's been set up. I know they haven't really given Nathan Peterman or Josh Allen or any quarterback in town really a lot of weapons to succeed. So there's that. But I mean, it's gonna. I'm packing in for a long season. So I guess with that being said, there's no better time, Brayton, than to look ahead. And our look ahead here on the Trust the Podcast is brought to you by 26 Shirts, which over at 26shirts.com, obviously, they have multiple cities, multiple T-shirts per city. Right now, the latest Buffalo offering is the Vintage Gridiron, which is available now through September 9th. Per 26 Shirts, it benefits Cure the Blue, which was spearheaded by former Buffalo Bills Wall of Famer and two-time prostate cancer survivor Booker Edgerson. And the Cure the Blue initiative is a program that has been strategically developed and designed to raise awareness, to educate the public, and provide financial support for this dreaded disease. Anyone can participate in the Cure the Blue initiative. Like I said, check that all out over at 26shirts.com, as well as Pittsburgh and Chicago have new shirts. Fantastic also has shirts, and obviously there are special edition T-shirts and mugs all available over at 26shirts.com. On to week one, though. The Buffalo Bills at the Baltimore Ravens. The few questions I have for you here, Brayton. Can Peterman and the weary offense overcome a solid Ravens defense? Will Buffalo's run defense round into Foreman time? And we saw some upgrading, some improvement during the offseason, during the preseason as well. But what to expect from rookie linebacker Tremaine Edmonds as he makes his National Football League debut in a pretty important spot? So what are your thoughts, I guess, those questions and more? What are your thoughts heading into Sunday's game against the Ravens?
Well, I mean, I think Sunday's game, we're all going to be watching what Nathan Peterman can do on offense and whether the offensive line can hold up for him and maybe even LeSean McCoy as well. But another thing to really pay attention to is, how the defense is going to play against Joe Flacco, who has apparently had a decent preseason, and we'll see if maybe they kind of try to throw in Lamar Jackson into the equation a little bit, which there's been talk that maybe they do as a wide receiver for whatever reason they want to do that, but maybe they have him in as some sort of specialty type player. But I'm looking forward to seeing really the Bills offense and how they look underneath Peterman when everything really matters. I mean, of course we saw what we had in the preseason, and Peterman again looked confident with his throws, with running the offense. Everybody seemed to be on his back, but that was the preseason. Preseason, it's preseason for a reason. We take everything with a grain of salt. We see what could be of this team, and once the regular season hits, then that's when everything really matters, and we'll see how it goes. I think that I'm to say that Nathan Peterman comes out, looks pretty confident, looks like he's throwing the ball real well. And I'm going to say the Bills come away with a week one win. It's going to be close. It's not going to look pretty to say, but I think they'll come away with a 21-17 win over Baltimore on the road.
For me, I'm thinking, we know what Nathan Peterman can do. We know his strengths, we know his weaknesses. With the Ravens' top cornerback being out due to suspension, that may help Buffalo, but we don't know what Buffalo's defense is going to do. And Baltimore gave Joe Flacco a bunch of weapons this offseason. So if Joe Flacco can come out and be elite Joe Flacco, I think the Bills' defense might be in trouble. At the end of the day, I'm going to guess it'll be a close game, maybe like 17-14 Ravens or something like that. But I'm going to guess that the Ravens come out with a victory here, and Buffalo's heads back home to regroup and figure out where they went wrong to hopefully improve as quick as possible. Because like I said, I know the play calling was very vanilla in the preseason as expected, but the Bills just did not inspire too much confidence, and they're running into a buzzsaw right now. Like I said, maybe they come out and get lucky, like you said, Brayton. But I'm not feeling too confident about the Buffalo Bills right now. So, like I said, I'm going to predict a 17-14 loss in Week 1. And I hate to do that, but I don't know what else to say at this point. But I guess, we've hit everything in the podcast. We've kind of run down the preseason. We hit the notes, hit the stats, hit the predictions, the look ahead. And I guess with that being said, about 25, 26 minutes into the podcast. Now, this is about what we want to hit every week. So this is what we're going to strive for. We're going to hit you with the recap, what we thought about it, and maybe some stats, and we'll look ahead. Every single week like it was last season. We're not going anywhere. We'll see you every Monday or Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, depending on when the game was, depending on what's going on with our lives, because we're two busy people. But we want to bring the best Buffalo Bills coverage we possibly can here. So, Brayton, thank you for joining me this evening.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to joining you every week here. It's should be a fun year. Again, just depending on how everything goes with expectations. But I'm really looking forward to getting the chance to talk with you every week and get through another season of Trust the Podcast.
Hey, even if the Bills are bad, the positive is we get to talk to each other every week for about a half an hour, which is a double thumbs up for me.
Yeah, and we didn't get the chance to do that all that often when the Sabres were bad last year, and now look at them. They might be actually good this year.
They might be. The Bills were good, now they might be bad. The Sabres are bad, they might be good. It's like we're living in dogs and cats living together, upside down houses, all that crazy stuff. But again, you can follow Brayton at BJ Wilson WGR. I am Ryan Wolfe at WolfeBLTD on Twitter. This is Trust the Podcast. Like I said, check us out. BetterLiveThanDead.com, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, also on Spotify. Just whatever you like to listen to stuff on, search Trust the Podcast. Look for the Sean McDermott Better Live Than Dead logo. And that being said, we will catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, go Bills.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.